Hi, welcome back. Now we're going to talk about the fact that functions close over values in their own scope. Now this is a tricky one. Other languages have things like lambda expressions, or maybe they're even called closures. And they're made a little bit more tricky by the fact that they're called a closure, but nobody ever really explains why they're called a closure or what they're really good for. And to be fair, they're really good for certain things, but those certain things aren't things that you do all the time. And so the concept of closure is kind of like the concept of pointers for beginning programmers in C. I mean, why would I want to do that? But once you learn the concept, you kind of figured out that closures are actually extremely powerful, and you should be using them more if the circumstances call for it. So I've got a very contrived, as these examples tend to be, a very contrived example of a closure, but it actually proves what a closure is capable of doing. So here's a function, add. We've seen the function add. This is just a different way to do it. Add A and B. Now the difference is that this function doesn't just directly add A and B. It doesn't return anything. It sets a global value. Now recall that if I don't use the keyword var, the variable I create thereby, CLAdd here, is a global function or a global variable. If it makes you more comfortable to do this, you can certainly do that. But if it makes more sense for you to do it, it's not going to cost anything, certainly. So you can do this. You can leave it out either way. But CLAdd, defined with the keyword var, defines a variable at global scope. In other words, it will exist for the lifetime of the page. Now CLAdd is a different kind of variable. Well, not really, because functions are variable types. So CLAdd is a function. This is an anonymous function. Now there's nothing weird about this. This anonymous function, though, will close over the values defined in its enclosing scope. That's what functions do. JavaScript has function level scope. If I had global variables up here, the function add would close over those variables as well. So CLAdd is closing over anything that is defined in its enclosing scope. In other words, A and B. And this is very important because CLAdd, because it closes over A and B, it can not declare anything A or B. It can just say sum is equal to A plus B, and then either return it or, as in this case, just say get element by ID sum, this guy down here, and then set its inner HTML to whatever that sum is. The important thing here is how CLAdd is able to be called. So when we look at our HTML and you see two buttons here, click me first, then click me, and we can see those here. The first on-click event on the first button is add 4 and 5.9. Okay, what that's going to do is just define CLAdd and grab CLAdd then is able to get A and B and add them. But this function doesn't run this. It doesn't run that. It just makes a variable, a global variable called CLAdd, which is this anonymous function. All right, so similar to saying function CLAdd, whatever, but what it does is it makes a global variable. Now, this guy is going to just run CLAdd. So we wouldn't have to have two buttons, but it allows us to see what's going on. This is target, this is sum, so the text on the buttons are going to change. So here's how it works. If we say click me first, this has created the CLAdd function with the parameters 4 and 5.9, if I remember correctly. Now if we click then click me, I get 9.9. I add up 4 and 5.9 and I get 9.9. Let's reload it. If I do then click me here, it's going to do nothing. And the reason it's going to do nothing is because CLAdd never gets defined. So the closure is, one way to say it, is the closure is this CLAdd function. In other words, an anonymous function that encloses over or closes over the values in the scope in which it is defined is termed a closure. It closes over. So the closure is defined inside this function, and they almost always are defined inside a function. See, I could pull this cladd function and run it whenever I wanted to, any number of times, as long as the parameters were 4 and 5.9. If I wanted to redefine it, I could do that. It would just simply redefine the existing global variable cladd, and then we could add it with 3 and 4, whatever. The thing is here that anytime I want to redefine the functionality of cladd, I need to rerun the enclosing function. Now, in the real world, you probably wouldn't define an add function that could only add 4 and 5.9 through a closure. Functions are first-class types in JavaScript. Closures are very cool. They're a very important concept. They're very tricky. But if you go through this example and play with it a little bit, I think you'll begin to see how powerful they really are. Thank you very much.